Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? It's Brian again. We're gonna run over some of the latest Facebook questions today. So thank you for joining me. If you're picking this up and you're watching this, feel free to like, to share it, send it to any of your friends. Be able to let them know that this is going on. If they're interested in learning about Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, Snapchat advertising, I go live twice a week to be able to answer any questions that you guys have or chat or discuss things about that. So as I'm talking, if you have any questions or want to know more about a certain topic, leave a comment below. I'll try to answer them if I can. If not, a lot of times I'll go back and review the videos later on and give updates in later videos that are happening. So anyway, that's kind of it. To begin with, there was one update that I wanted to start with. This was an article that came from eMarketer, basically talking about the changing habits of millennials. And so what happens was they Fullscreen did a report or a survey on millennials ages 13 to 17, and what they found is that, and this probably will come to no surprise. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, but that they were consuming a lot less TV, as well as online content like blogs or publisher sites. And in exchange for that, they were now spending a whole lot more time with video and social. So some say, most people hear that and they're like, well, yeah, of course, no big surprise. But that's very much the future of how people are going to consume content, which is, less words and less, here, I'm going to give a ton of information, and more, I would rather be able to see the information or have a visual story behind what it is that I'm looking for, the answer that I'm looking for. So anyway, it's pretty fascinating. I think that for what matters out of that is that you understand, video is just becoming more and more mainstream. It's easier to create. There's lots of more options for it, whether it's live video or published video or just raw video of you talking to someone. So it's very important for you and your business to be able to leverage this, especially if you're going after the younger demos with your audience. Next up, this is good in the news. I wanted to, Instagram this last week announced that they just hit 250 million daily users, which is amazing. It's a fantastic number. So 250 million. They're definitely growing. And so the first thing I did was I was like, wait, where's this at in comparison with Snapchat? Snapchat had, right now, in the last time they updated it, had about 166 million daily active users. So Instagram has already surpassed Snapchat, and it's growing all the time. In fact, when they broke down the actual quarterly growth rates, Snapchat is growing at around a rate of 17%, and Instagram is growing at a rate of 25%. So again, big factors in the world of how people are using social media, how they're actually able to connect, and which ones are likely to continue to grow and be bigger. So as an advertiser, you're looking for, how do I reach the certain segments that I'm looking for? Instagram is becoming a powerhouse in terms of audience size. So anyway, it's good to know. Congratulations. Both of them are still growing. Both of them are great platforms. But definitely Instagram has got a little leg up on Snapchat now. There's two articles that I wanted to run over. They have a couple of tips in relation to Facebook advertising. The first one was an article by Hootsuite, or Hootsuite, depending upon how you say it, which was basically the do's and don'ts of visuals. So they had a couple of different tips in there, and I wanted to run through 5 of the ones that I liked, which are, let's do number 1, to use high quality images. So anyone that does any sort of advertising, you'll know that if you've tested anything, you'll see that the visuals that are really good or really creative, a lot of times will just outperform a kind of mediocre ad creative. So anyway, if you have the ability to create this, that's great. The other things that I would say is if you haven't taken the time to try to get some good quality images or just even real creative images. A lot of times, if you have a product, just try to photograph it in different areas or different scenarios. If you're at the beach, if you're at the mall, like those are all places that you can take photos of the product, and those are things that you can leverage down the road that are very unique and impactful for your brand. The second tip they give is don't use stock photos. So now I'm mixed on this one. Stock photos, hands down, probably won't perform anywhere near as well as a high visual image or something with your product. But at the same time, a lot of times it's a step to at least get started. And I just have worked with so many different advertisers that a lot of them have a difficult time to even get something up and rolling. They're not sure what to do. They're not sure what to test. And so a lot of times the stock images is just a starting point. So if you're a beginner, I think it's a fine option to be able to get you up and moving in the Facebook ad world to start to get some results, as opposed to waiting 3 months down the road till you get the photographer and set up your perfect shots. So anyway, that was one of their tips as well, which I agree with. I also said don't use illegible text. And basically, this is great. People that use cursive that's tough to read, or it's on a light background and it's a light font color. Those are things as well. I've also had people, send me ads that are going maybe in the right column or the sidebar of Facebook with very small text. And it's a big image when they create it, but when it's shrunk down to what's actually shown on Facebook, you can't read it at all. So I have to go back to them and be like, you realize that no one will ever be able to see this. So definitely stay away from that. That'll help you get better results. Do use icons and illustrations. When you're able to leverage custom illustrations or things, it stands out on Facebook simply because a lot of other people are using stock images or traditional photos. So that's something that, if you have the resources or the bandwidth to do, it's always probably most likely going to help your campaigns in the long run. And then finally, the last tip that they give was don't use a light background. And this again is another tip that I agree with, simply from the fact that the Facebook news feed is white. So everything appears on it is white. So if you use like a light gray or something, your image isn't going to really pop out of the newsfeed. Whereas if you use something that's red or blue or green or a very vivid color, it's much more likely to stand out. And it's not necessarily just a single color. Vivid imagery with colors in them, a lot of times those really pop when they're looking through the newsfeed. And if you're able to capture someone's attention or visually captivate them, you're much more likely to have them enjoy your ad, or at least stop to see what it is and to take a look. So great tips. I agree with all of them. Now lastly, we have effective ways to use Facebook. And this was an article that was online this last week. They had like 11 of them that were posted, but I went through and grabbed the top 5 to be able to kind of discuss with them real quick for you. So number 1 is remarketing to potential customers who abandon carts. So when it comes to like being effective on Facebook, and if you're selling a product and you have e-commerce, there's probably no better group you can go after than people who have added something to their cart and then left. They are right there with their credit card out when the phone rings or when someone knocks on the door or whatever. You don't know what the reason is, but they weren't able to complete it. And by simply going back to them and setting up a custom audience to be able to target those type of people, you're much more likely to be like, oh, that's right, I needed to get that, and to be able to get them to come back and complete the order. So a lot of times when we work with new e-commerce clients, that's the very first thing that we set up, or one of the very first things, to make sure that they're able to capture those people because they're most likely to convert. They're the most likely to convert. Another option is to deliver top of the marketing funnel content. So this is actually really interesting, simply from the fact that a lot of times people get into that advertising mindset, which is, well, I just need to tell them my business is awesome and you need to give me your money. And they freak out a little bit and they get very into like, I'm gonna push, which to some extent, is kind of how traditional advertising works. But what happens is, with Facebook, a lot of times when you're going out to everyone, it becomes very expensive to try to push a message on people because people may or may not take action. So a lot of times what happens is you can create something valuable towards the audience that you're trying to reach. It could be 5 tips about the industry that you're working in, or 10 things you didn't know, or here's the top 10 this. And what happens is, once you have that information, it doesn't feel salesy. It feels like, oh, this is something cool, I'll check it out. And what happens is if people watch that information, you then have the ability to build custom audiences around them and be able to show them additional videos or ads later on. But you can kind of sift out the people who are interested and the people who aren't in your products or service based on that type of category. So, it's definitely, it's the beginning of the top of the funnel, which is you're trying to get people in who have some sort of intent or interest in your business. But a lot of companies fail to do that because they don't necessarily always see the ROI out of it. They may be spending money and like, no one's buying, but they are bringing people closer into the funnel. And if they were to look at the entire, picture of what's happening, it's working, and a lot of times they're getting great results. But when they compare just this one segment or section of the funnel, they freak out and be like, oh, this isn't working, or we want to cancel that. So anyway, it's something that's a great tactic that you always should be doing to help get the best results. Let's see what else. Prompt purchases with a discount or reveal a flash sale. Man, there's no, you have to remember the people on the other end of Facebook are, they're there looking at their friends and family. So as they're scrolling through, your ad has the ability to appear, which means they're going to either look and go check your website out, or they're going to keep moving. And one of the very best ways to get someone to jump out to go to your site is with a purchase or a discount or some sort of flash sale, which is, hey, it's only today and then it's gone. Or we're only, for the next 12 hours, you can get 50% off. Those type of things, when someone sees it, they realize they may not be back by the time that the deal is there. And so a lot of times you can get people to take action simply by putting a deadline on it or creating like a sense of urgency behind it. So that's always a good tip that I recommend people do. The next one's going to be share customer tutorials. Testimonials. So, as people talk about your business and people are, looking at it or using at it, a lot of times you'll start to get feedback. Being able to share that is so valuable because other people online, it helps them make that decision of, should I trust this company? Is what they're saying true? And online, reviews or online testimonials are a great way to be able to be like, hey, other people are saying our business is great. Now with Facebook ads, you're paying to reach out, so you have the ability to put whatever message you want. So when you put a message like, hey, I've got, here are the testimonials, here's what people are saying about us, that's a great way to build credibility, to build trust with customers, and you can kind of do it on your own schedule and your own budget. So anyway, totally agree with that. And then finally, the last one I would say is present use cases. So what this means is simply the fact of show people how they can use your product or service in different scenarios. What does it look like in this scenario? What does it look like for moms? What does it look like for dads? What does it look like for kids? What does it look like for people with big cars or people with little cars? Like whatever it is that you're doing, sit down and make a list of all the different use cases where someone could probably use your product or service, and go and try to create something fun around that. Show it in these different scenarios, whether it's images or videos. And then a lot of times what you can do is you can actually put those into a carousel format where people could see the different examples side by side, being like, oh man, there are all these different ways where this product works. What comes to mind for me is, the infomercials generally with like the slap chop or something that's crazy, is they'll be like, look, it does this and this and this, and we can do anything, right? So there's tons of different options in terms of how to use the product. And the more that you see that, the more it builds value in the mind of the consumer, so the people watching it. So that's, that'd be my last tip for today. At this point, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We had one that came in from last week, which was I ran 2 ads and one of them had a higher relevance score, but also a higher CPC. How is this possible? So, I mean, there's a couple things that could have caused this. Definitely, when it comes to the ads, based on, the targeting, based on the ad length, based on the commercial, or not the commercial, but the actual video length. If they were exactly the same, I'm trying to think how I would solve that. Relevant score, but also a higher CPC. A lot of times it can be, with delivery issues. If the account is having any delivery issues, generally my thought is what I would do is probably refresh the ads, put them back up, see what else is there, and keep going. But anyway, it was a good question. Let me see if there's anything else that's coming through. Mo, what's up? Glad you're able to be here. Got it. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like that's kind of it for questions today. If you guys have more questions while you're watching this video later, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And we always look back and find other questions and comments. But thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.